I love it. Okay, so you brought up the pyramids in Egypt again. So now this is fantastic. So this is a picture from one of the museums in Egypt, right? And they've got no idea when they take tourists through there. And this is what is on display. Cone-shaped tools and magnetrons. I mean, how
Yeah.
wild is this?
Yeah, that's right. And those cones should be high dielectric and high piezo, and their capacitance should be tuned to Schumann, and that's very measurable. And that's also includes the magnetron's focused microwave. So we know exactly how to tune and optimize those things and what they're for.
Yeah. So I can imagine how they would have used the cones, um, because yeah, it's something you can hold in your hand. And I've always imagined that your thought frequencies, it's your thought is a frequency, it's a vibration. If you can channel your thought,
If you breathe into it the same way you breathe into a crystal, I have personally used pine cones very successfully for rainmaking.
well, there you go. So my thought has been this. If you whatever thoughts you have and you know how to channel your thoughts through your body into your arm into that cone, that frequency will go in there of your thought and turn into what I've been describing it as a Caesar beam, because it's a sound or a frequency that's manifested in sound
Yes.
or
There is,
sound
yes, there is a
wave or
sound.
whatever.
There is a sound component, which is the phonon of the heart rate variability and the breath. So the actual correct sounds, their golden ratio multiples of 0.1 hertz, the 10-second Mayer wave, most important frequency in the body and the breath, and defining HRV, LF, and defining bliss and kundalini, and defining the brain liquid pump. All starts with a 0.1 hertz 10-second breath, actually. And that's the beginning of the phase conjugate pump wave in the breath, in the spine liquid, and in the brain wave. And so we know exactly how to tune by measurement, teach people how to pump that device. Start with a 5-second in, 5-second out, and then the cascade will form around that, and that will implode to Schumann. Now you got a phase conjugate pump wave in your crystal, your pine cone, or those stone cones, which are implosive capacitance.
Yeah, and here they are on display in Egypt or the
And they know
Sumerian
how to
ones.
use them. They
Yeah.
know how to they knew how to implode them with a phase conjugate pump wave. They used to do it in a Vogel crystal. We now realize firecrystal.com. The tapered side is not an accurate conjugation as the parallel side, which is why the ancient Atlantean fire crystals. So check out firecrystal.com, PHIRE. I have the graphics here. Maybe we should show some slides, but when you're ready.
Well, I've got a few more things, but yeah, I love what you're adding to this, because that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you for exactly this reason. But I'm almost finished taking you through the array of images that I prepared. Now we talk about the cones, and my imagination was always that if I'm thinking I want to cut down that mountain or I want to cut down that giant tree, that's my thought. So my thought is a thought frequency of cutting or whatever. Now, if I can channel that through my body into my hand and through the cone, that speeds up the frequency and turns it into a Caesar beam, as I've been describing it, which whatever the correct scientific term would be, um, that becomes then the frequency of that beam is what I'm thinking. So you could then turn it into a deadly lethal weapon because of your thoughts. Or you could turn it into a healing weapon or a deadly weapon or whatever, and that's driven by a thought, by your thoughts, right? But what happens that when that Caesar beam comes out, because it's sound and it's traveling, it creates a powerful magnetic field around it at the same time. Right
Well,
now,
it's a directional longitudinal, like Luke Skywalker's lightsaber or Anki's.
yes, yes,
But just one other little flavor to add to that is I knew Cleve Baxter very well at the time with Marcel Vogel. They measured the fact that if you're visualizing you're going to hurt the plant immediately knows. Whereas if you're visualizing you're going to love the plant. So actually, there's something self-organizing about loving thoughts versus destructive thoughts. Ultimately, destructive thoughts are going to lose charge because this is not a shareable wave. When you walk by a mountain and you ask the mountain's aura to come to you, if the aura of that mountain knows that you have pure intention, the aura of that mountain loves to come to you because you help it become immortal. Whereas if you do not have shareable thoughts, pure intention is actually defined by coherence. So that's why you be careful about how you describe the weapon making here, because ultimately it's only the thought that's shareable that can do the compression called successful death or bliss.
Okay. So follow my logic here, and tell me if I've lost my mind, or if this is something that is in the field of scientific plausibility. So now you got one cone. What you noticed in those images I was showing earlier of all these guys holding those cone-shaped tools, all of them are holding two cones. They're holding two cones, not one cone, except the only guy that held one cone is that bird-headed being, right?
Oh,
That guy,
oh,
those.
Tahuti.
But all these other priests, I mean, notice those vibrational plates around his head and so forth. That's a dead giveaway that we're dealing with resonance and frequency, right?
Well, you need a pair to phase conjugate.
Yes. So this is where I'm going with this. So if one laser beam can be turned into like a powerful, infinitely more powerful laser, and you can cut down a giant tree or cut down a mountain or excavate some rocks or whatever. But now you've got a piece of tree lying there. Now, what now? Now, if you've got a second one, if you've got two of them, you've got two powerful magnetic fields, and you can trap that item in that magnetic field and move it. So that's sort of how I've been imagining it. And where would you like that giant tree? Over there? Thank you. You got your two cones, these powerful magnetic fields that are like as powerful as you can imagine, and then you can pick it up and move it because it's now, you've trapped it in your magnetic field.
Well, when we measured Jean-Charles Moyen, who famously teleports with witnesses, comes back with sand between his toes. Just before he teleported, we measured his brainwaves. Flameinmind.com/lucidbrain, and we have graphics here. But so his brainwaves became a extremely high amplitude alpha to gamma golden ratio cascade. It looks like a huge caduceus, very high amplitude brainwave coherence. And then just before he teleports, he sees where he was through one eye and where he's going through the other eye. So we know what's happening. The implosion in the pineal embeds him in the array, and he propagates to another node in the longitudinal array. It has to be a node in the array. For example, he always went to the beach because he had longitudinal coherence. So just to understand that the actual way you propagate through the array is implosive compression, and then you inhabit the array, and then you emerge from the array where the frequency signatures match. For example, in the sailors at Montauk, Philadelphia, they all propagated in time travel to the bar on the shore that they were all dreaming of going to that weekend. That's where they went. So their intent took them. So inhabiting and navigating the array, and a great introduction to that physics is how you steer in a lucid dream. I have slides on the physics of lucid dreaming. The university studies showed the frequencies that trigger lucid dreaming, like our Therify.net and Phi-Ray.com, are actually conjugate implosion. When the aura gets centripetal, there's coherent propagation into the longitudinal array called ancestor memory or song lines. And that's when you inhabit the array. And that's the trigger of the ability to lucid dream, which is probably the biggest predictor of whether you'll take memory through death, called physicsofsoul.com. So that longitudinal coherent propagation, called the Ba from the Ka, the Kesjan body, or rainbow light body, is actually the body getting implosive enough, called bliss, to propagate coherently into the longitudinal, to then inhabit the array and then navigate in that array. So the steering in the dream, as it were.
So you said that this guy that you were doing the trap.
Yes, he's a friend of Elena Denon. I've done a lot of lectures with them, and he asked us for help because he wanted to document his ability to teleport, which is quite famous. And the amplitude of brainwave coherence was off the charts, the highest brainwave alpha to gamma cascade coherence we've ever seen. He had to turn down the gain just before he would teleport. And so we know the physics. And now we've turned down the gain in a lot of our devices. We know the time distortion, why it's caused, et cetera, which, by the way, is harmonic inclusiveness. So basically, the implosion into the centripetal force to inhabit the array, it's really very simple. When what's called consciousness is the liquid crystal charge vortex that forms in the synaptic array of your brain, you already inhabit an array. It's very simple. But if you wish to have lucid dreaming and the ability to survive death, called physicsofsoul.com, that skill requires the ability to implode, compress, called bliss, and become radiant coherently in that longitudinal array, which is very measurable very teachable and very inducible by frequency signature, both phonon and plasma, etc. It's all successful centripetal force, like the rose that got compressed before it could be radiant.